Good afternoon, this is Sal Passanisi. It's Christmas time here at Digital Technology Group. We want to wish everybody some happy holidays, and we're really excited that we got our Christmas present today. It's the Epson CTP 7900. So this is the new plate setting Epson. It's a full-featured Epson 7900 with a plate setter attachment to it and as well as a baking oven. It will do aluminum plates. So what we're going to do is we're going to unpack it, show you the components of it, and how to set it up from a remote standpoint. So with that, the first thing we always do is we try to get the UPC code and serial numbers from the machine. I usually will take a picture of the UPC code as well as take it off the machine. So on the side of the Epson crate from the front, there's actually a little piece of cardboard that will cut out and pull off. And that'll give us the UPC code, serial number, model number. Really important, especially when it comes to rebates, because Epson wants to see this physical piece back to them. On the front of the CTP Kit 100, there's also a serial number as well as the barcodes. We'll keep this on the box for now, but this may also be removed for rebates or for serial numbers and support. So with that, we're going to start to uncrate the unit. The unit comes in two large boxes. The first unit is the top of the baking unit, and that's where the aluminum plates are going to go after they're processed, and they'll process through there and basically set the plate up for printing. The second component is going to be the Epson 7900. So anytime you get an Epson printer in, on the side of the box there'll be an open here first for documentation and instructions. So we want to do that because most of the time it'll walk you through the whole process. This video is an aid to that. So I'm going to cut this open. And then inside the printer will be the documentation on how to set it up as well as the power cord. So you'll open this up and it's got a couple different manuals in it. If you have a RIP, which the CTP unit does have, your EFI box will be in there. That's where the proofing edition will also come into play. And then you're going to get a user's guide for the CTP setup and for installation purposes. Now we're just going to show you the physical attributes of it. We like to do the remote installation either with a computer to your computer or be on site to help you set it up. But this is just a physical setup of the devices. Also very important when you open this up, there's going to be a little quick reference guide. But right now we're going to, as we start to do this, we're going to lay these components on the floor and we'll start to do the uncrating process. So we're basically going to cut the two vinyl holding straps off with our handy dandy cutters, and we're going to just take this device off and move to the side. It does have handles on the side of the box. It is quite hefty, so it might require two people, but it's not too bad. And now that we've got that off to the side, we're going to move on to our Epson 7900. So once again, we're going to get our cutters and we're going to cut the straps off the box. And once we've got that off, the easiest way to do this is you can do it one of two ways. But the easiest way to do it is either lift it off. And if you've got two people, that's very easy to do. You just kind of shimmy it and it'll come right up. Or you can cut it out, or you can open the box and bring the components out. So you've got three ways of doing that. For this demonstration purpose, we're going to remove the box with two people, and then we're going to show you what's inside the contents. So once we get the top of the box up, I usually flip the box upside down, and that's where I use to discard the packing materials as I'm going through the process. What you're going to find on the Epson is on the top is the stand, which is the first thing you assemble. Underneath will be the ink set and then the actual printer itself. So as I remove the cardboard, and I'm going to put that right in the box, we're going to see we have the back of the printer here. And what we're going to do is the stand actually comes in another box. Once again, this is pretty hefty, so you might require two people to do this. And the stand will have on top of it a little quick reference guide of the components of the stand and what's included in the box, which is the actual stand itself and the catch tray for the paper. So that's that part of the box. Then on the next series of the boxes, we're going to have your test roll of media, which depending on which edition you get, will either include a single weight mat or a single weight mat as well as a standard proofing paper 240 on the proofing edition. The 7900 CTP can do proofs with a RIP upgrade, and it can do standardized proofs with the RIP it's got existing. So we're going to take the paper out. We then have the media guides for when the paper exits the printer. We have the two spindleless paper holders. These are kind of state-of-the-art. You don't have the old spindles like you used to on the old Epson. Very handy, very easy to operate. Then on the other side of the printer, you're going to start to see your ink cartridges. And your ink cartridges are going to come in both a box and then the extra. These are the HDR printers, high dynamic range. So these are going to have your orange and green ink. So that's going to come out. And then next, we're going to remove the top styrofoam, which is protecting the top of the printer and keeping the stand from actually hitting the printer. So there's two sides to that. And I'm going to do this at a fairly rapid pace. Once we've got these off, you've got basically the guts of your printer. So you've got a couple more little styrofoam blocks. And you can kind of see the printer starting to take shape. Pull the plastic off. Then there's a protective liner to keep the printer from getting scratched. And we'll pull that off, and then we're going to flip the printer around so you can see it from the front. It doesn't matter whether the printer's in the front or in the back as you're coming off the stand, because the only thing that's really critical is basically getting the stand correctly positioned for the printer to go on top. Okay, so once you've got the plastic cover off and the protective cover off the Epson while it's still sitting on its shipping skid, what you're going to see is you're going to start to see the front of the Epson printer. There's going to be a lot of protective tape on different areas. This is to keep the machine from jostling or scratching while it's in shipment and transit. The tape is everywhere, so we'll go through how to take that off. You're going to see on the front of the Epson both the HDR technology, which is the orange and green, high dynamic range, as well as the Pantone certification on the front of the printer. So the CTP device is a fully functional Epson 7900 with standard ink set. As we look at the inks, we removed two earlier, and the rest of the cartridges are in a box. So between these two, you've got a complete set of starter inks that'll charge up and also give you the ability to output some files. I would recommend ordering a set of inks. You can call one of our DTG consumable reps, and they'll be happy to put a favorites up there for you with media. We're going to get to the point where hopefully we're going to send you out some sample packages of what you can use media on the CTP device. It does do a great job at posters, fine art reproductions, proofing. It's a multitasking device. So once we get the ink out, now we're going to start to take a look at the printer, and we're going to actually remove it from the stand and start to set the stand up. So right at this point, you've got the capability of starting the assembly process. So with that, we're going to take the stand out of the box, and we'll get right back to you. Okay, now we've basically unpacked the stand from the box that it comes in that sits on the top of the printer. Important note at this time, you can take out in your black leather-bound Epson case is the 7900-9900 printer guide. In the very front of the guide, you're going to see how to assemble the stand. So basically, it'll tell you unpacking and how to assemble the printer. So it's going to go through some of the steps we went through, but it's going to show you what components are in that package that the stand comes in. You've got two legs, you've got your manual holder, your stabilizer support crossbeam, and then your paper tray catcher. There's a small bag that's going to be in the box that's going to hold all the nuts and bolts as well as the Allen wrench that you're going to need to assemble the stand. So it's really important that you kind of get this small bag out. Make sure you don't miss it. It's got everything you need to assemble the stand in it, including the tools. So what we're going to do is we'll just unpack that little bag. And inside the bag there's going to be two smaller bags. One is for the catch tray, and the other one's for the actual stand itself to assemble the stand and then put the printer on the stand. So I'm just going to remove that and put it on the floor. There are no extra nuts, so if you've got anything left after assembly, you did something, or you've got a screw loose, basically. So the way to tell the stand is properly set up is on the top there is an L and an R on the top of each stand leg for your left and your right. The one quick reference that I usually use is there'll be two plastic components to the paper catch tray. Those go in the front. So that's a pretty easy way to identify what the front and what the back of the stand is. So you want to have the front of the stand towards the front if the printer is in the front coming out, or if it's in the back you want to reverse it so you're going back to back on the stand. We usually like to do it from the front. It's a little easier to grab it. So what we're going to do now is assemble the stand. The first thing you're going to do is take your cross beam. Now this doesn't have a left and a right to it, but it does at the end. So you're not going to see anything, but at the ends there'll be an L and an L. So if you match up the L with the L leg, fit in there. Okay, so you're going to have 3 Allen screws for each side with a lock washer on each one. So what I usually do is try to get it kind of at a 45 degree and hand tighten one screw, usually the very bottom one. And then once you've got one, it's stable enough that you can put the other 2 screws in with no problem. So we're just going to get these in. And some of these are a little bit tighter than others, so you'll maybe have to use the Allen wrench to get one started. But most of the time you can get them in pretty close with your hand. So once we've got these in place, we'll tighten them up. And you want to get them pretty tight so you kind of almost hear the leg click to the support bracket. So not super tight, but tight enough to where you can kind of feel that it's not going anywhere. Once you get one leg in, it's pretty easy to get the other leg on because it'll be fairly stable. So we're going to grab our right leg, bring it up. What I'll usually do is I'll get it in place, get it in, and then in the front there's a wheel lock. So you can lock the front wheels so it's not sliding around when you're assembling the stand. Okay, so once you've got your legs locked in place, you'll really get some stabilization to the stand. So we're just going to put the other 3 Allen screws in on our right side. And this second side's a little easier to get the screws in because you don't have that 45 degree angle anymore. So they'll hand tighten right on there. And once again, just make sure they're good and snug with the provided wrench. Torque them down. And your stand's assembled. You can unlock your wheels and then slide it around. What we usually do is we'll get it fairly close to the printer so that it's basically a bit of a lift and then set it down. The stand is pinned to the printer, so you're going to see these 2 nubs that stick out on the top of the stand. There's actually 2 females that'll go into the male nubs, and then the printer's basically on the stand. We're then going to take 2 screws and put them in between the bottom and the top of the stand. This screw has a lock and a flat washer that you'll put onto the screw. So what I usually do is I'll leave these kind of up here in place so they're easy to get to once you get the printer on the stand. And these you want to kind of hand tighten, not too tight but fairly tight, but don't use a ply or anything on them because if you've got to move it, they're kind of a bear to get off. So that's basically the basic components on the stand. I'm going to move the paper catch tray away so we can bring the stand closer. The paper catch tray is a nylon-based anti-scratching mechanism. It's also got some plastic in it to guide the paper in. These are the side supports for different setups of the paper tray assembly. On the side here, we have a documentation holder. I usually put this on after I get the printer on. That way it's plastic and we don't want to snap it off while we're doing it. And then these are all basically part of the paper tray. So as we just went through this process, it's in the manual also, so you can kind of follow along. It tells you to lock the wheels. And then on the 9900, you need 2 pretty hefty guys. On the 79, 2's pretty easy to do, but sometimes we've got a 3rd guy on the 9900, which is a 44-inch version. And why you want that is it might be a guy that can kind of get the screws into place. But the 79 and the CTP 79 are really not that big an issue. So with that, we're going to move the stand closer. We're going to lift the printer onto the stand, and then we'll come back to you.